Good evening, everyone. You're watching the Cheese Room podcast. Welcome back to the Man Cave. I'm your host, the caller, this evening, and we have got a great show for you lined up. And I've got three very special guests with me tonight. So going around the room, as always, I'm joined by HG. How you doing? HG, how is Vienna?
It's summer. Yeah, it's all good. Nice weather. It's a bit of a thunderstorm today, but yeah. I will never complain. I'm halfway through my summer holidays. I've still got 5 weeks to go. Life is always pretty chipper.
Very good, very good. Well, I'm sure life is chipper when you only work about 5 weeks a year. And moving on, Dave, how are you this evening? How is, or should I say this morning in your case? You're in tomorrow, aren't you? So how is Australia? Tell us about that.
I am your future caller. I am in tomorrow. So it's 6 o'clock Saturday morning. We've got 4 more weeks of lockdown in Sydney and elsewhere. And but I think it's going to be 23 degrees today in a winter's day in Sydney. Not too bad, eh?
I tell you what, that's not bad at all. I'm almost jealous, but you're all in lockdown, aren't you? So I'm not that jealous. And Matt, how's Ireland? How you doing?
I'm all good. It's weird hearing that because 23 degrees is the unbearable summer that we've had in Ireland for the last 4 months or last 4 weeks, which is bizarre. But look, I'm doing all good. Always a pleasure to come on the show. Thanks again for having me.
No, absolutely, and thanks for joining us. And we'll talk a bit more about your show and hopefully get a few of our viewers over there later on in the show. So we've got a few things going on since our last broadcast. The first of which. I was chatting to Dave and I was trying to work out how we top Lamella Mind. And then the perfect opportunity presented itself with Toby Alderweireld leaving because Dave secretly has a bit of a kind of a man crush. Well, not that secret, actually. You can see behind him, he's got, apart from the Godfather, he's got a little shrine to Toby Alderweireld up there. No expense spared. And Dave, you really miss him, don't you?
You know, I'm a straight man living in Sydney. I have man love for Toby Alderweireld. I really do. I think you know when you've got that defence of Walker, Rose, Toby, and Jan. I mean, us as Tottenham fans, we don't really laud great defenders over the years. And why is that? Because we've always been about attacking and flair, and Tottenham's not really been built on defensive stability, but. Toby is a fantastic player. So my heart has been a little saddened this week at his departure from the club. The last of that back line to go.
A great shame. And we should touch on Toby before we move into anything future tense, because if you look back at his career with Tottenham, he's been a fantastic player all the way through, hasn't he, Matt? What's your top memories of Mr. Alderweireld?
Oh, it's just I think that last year at White Hart Lane, him alongside Jan Vertonghen, it just truly was a sensational defence. And some of the numbers they plucked out were bizarre. It was 26 goals conceded across a 38-game season, including an unbeaten run at White Hart Lane, and that was down in no small part whatsoever to to the two of them. I think Toby just epitomised what Spurs were for that couple of years when things actually looked positive. Can't remember that. And it's a shame that he's gone, but look, it was probably the right time for him to go, provided we do get in a suitable centre-back replacement. But if I had to pick a single moment, probably that winner against Arsenal when the Premier League returned last year, because those are always an absolute joy to behold.
Yeah, you can see what that goal meant to him. HG, Toby +1 is gone. As you would always describe it as your favourite memory of Mr. Alderweireld, and how do you feel about him being sold? The fee was in the region apparently of 10 million. I've heard people splatting 3 million, 10 million, 13 million. It's 150 grand's worth of wages off the books. I know that much, and a small fee. But how do you feel about the whole thing?
I just find it weird that people are celebrating the fact that his wages are off the books when he was clearly our best player in defence. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, yes, we've sold our best player and the money that we were paying him because he was so good. Best memories, every time he played the ball last year, every time he stuck on the pitch last year, because we were better with him. It's a bit of a head scratcher. I know he wants to go, and it's obviously a great financial deal for him, but I can't see any positives right now because we are worse.
Yeah. I mean that's really morbid. Thanks for that, HG. I feel really happy now.
It's not morbid. It's the truth. Like none of our defenders have anywhere near the reputational quality that Alderweireld has shown. Like Dyer spent half his Tottenham career playing in midfield. Sanchez only looks good next to Toby. Rodon has barely played. And so what? Tanganga, is he your best one now? He may well be.
Well,
That's the crazy thing. Like I know that he's not our future, but like Toby could have been demoted from first choice to third choice. But no, we sent him on his way, and everyone seems happy about it. I don't understand that at all.
I don't think happy about it, but happy that I feel confident that we've got a replacement lined up, which we'll come on and talk to further in the pod. What appears to be a slight shambles at the moment, but hopefully we'll unravel some of that. I'm hoping that it just appears a shambles, and really there's a grandmaster plan at the end of it. But yeah, sure. In the here and now, we've weakened the squad, but surely that across the window it comes out stronger. That's the aim, isn't it? So you can't be completely doomy and gloomy about it. Give us your top Toby moment. And by the way, if you're watching at home, please do subscribe. That enables you to comment, and then do stick some great comments in there. What's your favourite memories of Toby Alderweireld? HG.
I just answered that question. Yeah. Well, I don't know what you want me to say.
Well, your best single moment, really.
My best single moment in 6 years. 6 years of quality defensive. Like it's not like Lamella where we've all got a list of 4 because they were the only 4 things that ever happened. Like Toby's entire Spurs career is the best thing that happened when Toby was at Spurs. It's really difficult to pick when he was pretty much the best defender we had every single week. What you want me to say? The time we got booked or the time we conceded a penalty? Because they were rare. I remember those. But Toby's quality, no, it was every week. I can't think of one thing.
I remember him conceding that penalty last season with his leg outstretched. That was a shocker. Dave, come on then. Yeah. I know you've prepared something very special.
Do you want me to do it now?
Oh, I think you should just do it. Yeah, I think you should go for it.
Okay, now, following on from last week when we had the Lamella Mind, and there's no coincidence that I'm in lockdown at the moment, and when I'm not homeschooling, I've got plenty of time on my hands. I've written a poem in tribute to Toby Alderweireld, and I need to issue a legal disclaimer to begin with. It's a pure coincidence that this poem has been written without any knowledge of the work of an American singer-songwriter who was once married to Princess Leia and wrote a song called The Boxer. Matt, you may not have heard of this person. It's okay.
I have no idea who you're talking about, Dave. I'm entirely honest with you.
There you go. So here we go. So if I can indulge you cheeseheads and my fellow guests and hosts, here we go. I am just a straight man from Sydney, though my story's seldom told, of my man love for a Belgian called Toby Alderweireld. Bought from Atletico Madrid before lockdowns and COVID. Tattoos beautifully inked on each arm, in an error-strewn defence, a sea of calm. I was there, his first goal v City. It lit a flame, where even Eric Lamella had a good game. Title contention, finals, it really moved me. To be clear, not enough to give me a semi. Even in lockdown, Toby got iPads for those in need, overshadowing Daniel, his furloughing, and outright greed. Project Restart, you scored the winner against the scum. Your lovely parted hair, rising to head us into 2-1. Now, with you gone, where will be our cheese room fun? No more HG, saying each week Toby +1. To say Dyer and Sanchez are better is very mean. I'd rather have a shite Oasis than a peak Keane. So, it's farewell, Toby. I will really miss you. Bye, bye, bye. Bye, 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 bye. Bye, bye, bye. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you.
So what did you make of that, Matt? an educational experience?
This show has changed since I was last on, Connor. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
Matt, you think I've got a bit too much time on my hands? Is that what you reckon?
No comment.
I honestly think Lamella Mind, you're struggling to beat it, if I'm honest, Dave.
Was that a pig?
I loved Lamella Mind. I loved every second of it.
I just really enjoyed Lamella Mind, yeah.
So stick to Lamella Mind.
Whoever's next out the door, let's go for a quiz rather than the sonnet.
Well, if it's Harry Winks, then that's over to you, Paula.
I'm fucked. But we're gonna talk about him tonight anyway. So let's stick with our defence and the rumour mill. So Romero still not signed. Should we be worried about this, Matt Hayes?
No, I'm going to remain the eternal optimist. Look, during the week, it seemed as though things could be falling apart with this. Could look like the wheels could have been falling off the bus, but there was still a part of me that was confident it would get done because I tweeted it out during the week. We're going to see right now who has the power with the way this deal goes. Is it Fabio Paratici, who's been quoted as saying he will overpay for his targets because he feels like he needs to get them done? Or will it be Dele Alli, who missed out on Paulo Dybala, Bruno Fernandes, Milan Skriniar, and 25 million other players from this pointless penny pinching that essentially is the reason that we're in a position now where we have to try and rebuild rather than continuing to build on what we had done in the last 5-10 years. I think it'll happen. I think it's one that's just too important to Spurs. And, you know, as HG said, right now, the departure of Toby Alderweireld means our defence is worse. But you kind of have to feel that the club wouldn't have allowed him to go unless they knew there was a replacement on the way. And Nikola Milenkovic, for me, isn't a replacement. A Kurt Zouma, as much as that just simply isn't going to happen, isn't a replacement. And we can't afford to start the season with Eric Dyer and Davinson Sanchez at the back. So I think it's going to happen. It could be, we could end up paying a little bit more than we had anticipated, but you know, if it's 55 million euros, about 45 million pounds for a defender who last year was the Serie A defender of the year, you know, Italy, a country renowned for its defending. And if we're looking at how much we wanted Milan Skriniar won the league last season, had the best season of his career, yet still everyone in Italy thought Romero was just that bit better. So I think we are at the moment becoming a victim of the fact that we haven't heard of the player. But I'm absolutely more than happy to sit here and not know who this player is that we're signing, but trust the man who's won 9 straight skedaddle with Juventus in that league, and actually is the man who brought Romero to Juventus in the first place, and trust that he knows the best defensive target for us.
Yeah. HG, I'm going to be controversial now. Is Paratici's judgment that good if he let a player go out on loan and then put a really tiny release clause in the contract? Is that short-sightedness on his part? And do you think, I suppose the second part is, do you think, like Matt, this deal will get over the line?
No, I think the deal will happen. So, yeah, I agree with Matt on that. Last summer was just a weird time for everyone because of COVID. Like, perhaps Juventus thought, you know, we can loan him out, we can give him this cheap deal, and maybe they weren't expecting him to do what he's done. They weren't expected some English team to come in and basically triple... Atalanta's, they'll spend 17 million to get him, and they'll sell him, 2 minutes later for 50 million. So like there are lots of things. Juventus aren't short of centre backs. They've got Demiral, they've got De Ligt, they've got Chiellini, they've got Bonucci. Like he was probably 5th choice for them. So it's like he may well have been fantastic for Atalanta, and he's going to get hopefully a really good move to Spurs from it. But Juventus aren't short in that situation at all. So it's perhaps a little bit short-sighted on their part because at least Chiellini and Bonucci are pretty old now, but they could play another 2-3 years together easily. And De Ligt might be the one that misses out. And De Ligt is only 23, 24 himself, maybe not even that old. So it's I don't know. I just think that Romero will happen, but I'm honestly more concerned about what happens after that because Romero isn't enough. So like we can all sit here and say, yeah, we spent a lot of money on the best defender in Serie A. But who's he going to play with? Are we going to play in a 3? Are we going to have a 4? Who's the left-sided centre back? There are still too many questions that, like I know that Tomiyasu might happen, and I know there are probably a couple of other names that we've maybe not even heard of yet that Spurs are thinking, okay, well if that goes, if that happens, then great. But it's all a bit confusing because we're just 2 weeks away from the first game, and we don't have anyone in. We've made the defense was already the weakest part of our side probably, and we've just made it weaker. I'm just nervous.
Okay. I meant what I said earlier, by the way. I tweeted out, I've got, I can't remember my exact words, but I've got two of the most knowledgeable experts on the show tonight, Matt Hayes, HG. Your two knowledge combined blows my mind. So thanks for both coming on. So Dave O, that's where I'm leading. What's your view as to why this deal hasn't got over the line, mate?
They say that comedy's dead, but live on YouTube tonight, you set them up, knock them away. Listen, we talked about this a week ago, and the deal's not been done yet. Golini and Brian Hill are players for tomorrow, potential. Romero is for now, okay? And shrewd businessman that Mr. Levy is, he's just sold our best centre-half whilst he's in negotiations to buy another centre-half. So the club who are going to sell the centre-half know we're now desperate and they're going to stick to their price or even up their price. So that's not terribly shrewd, Daniel. As Matt said, we have a hall of fame of players that we didn't get. Dybala, Fernandes, João Moutinho, all that lot. And we didn't sign anyone for a year and a half. We didn't pay the money for Jack Grealish when we offered $3 million plus Marcus Edwards. And who's the first player that we bought after a year and a half of not buying anyone? Jack Clark for £10 million. And look how well that's gone. So, the point is that there's commentary.
I'm trying to work out what your point is. Yeah.
My point is this, so there's been chat this week about 50 million quid is too much to pay for Ben White by Arsenal. Yeah. So we're all saying that's too much money. And the chat is that, Sanchez, we paid 42 million quid for him. He played well for Ajax and the Eredivisie, which is the dominant, Ajax a dominant team there. And we're balking at paying, 46 million quid for this guy. We need him in now. We need him playing in pre-season and getting to learn and play with the team. And HG is right as well. We actually need another centre-back on top of that as well. So get the deal done. Barcelona are lurking. Everyone says they've got financial issues. They can offer a player. And if at the end of the day, someone could swoop in and gazump us, and I said this last week, it's a possibility. So we've got a big risk here.
Yeah, okay. And the thing with Romero is because he was at the Copa America, even if we'd signed him, he'd on holiday with the Celso right now anyway. So, that's no excuse, right? Because we should have the deal done. But it's if only so we can move on to the next one. I know that Paratici might be Mr. Plate Spinner and have lots of things going at the same time, but it's all going to be money related. This deal can't happen unless we've sold this player first. That's how we're going to operate. And so it's almost, I suppose, more important that we do sell players. If we've got Winks out the door, if we've got Sissoko out the door, it guarantees that, we might be a bit more desperate for players and may have to pay a few million more, but at least we're doing that because I read today that, I read, that doesn't mean it's going to be true, but I read today that people Oliver Skipp could go out on loan if we don't sell Winks and Sissoko, which is just madness. And it can't be true because that would be so illogical.
I've got that down as a discussion point, so I'm glad you brought it up, actually. Mm-hmm. Skipp has looked our best player for my money, or the most consistent player in the 3 games we've seen so far. Matt, I don't know if you've read the article in The Athletic that HG is referring to that was out there today, but in summary, it sort of says, unless we can shift some dead words, Sissoko, Winks, it doesn't really understand where Skipp's going to fit in and he might end up back out on loan again. Surely that is just bullshit, and that's not good, for want of a better word. That's not going to happen, is it? I think everyone who's watched any of the friendlies will see, and Skipp was also in the Championship Team of the Year last year. He's going to be in and sniffing around the first team this year, is he not? Just tell us that's rubbish from your view. Tell us. I demand it.
It's rubbish. No, I think, Oliver Skipp was definitely worthy of getting into that Championship Team of the Year last season. I do feel a big part of him actually getting there was Spurs fans hijacking Twitter polls, which is one of the things I love most about this fan base. But it is illogical from a footballing sense, and from the sense of, he is probably the better player to have on our team. But if you're looking at it from a financial point of view, which I've no doubt Daniel Levy is, if there are 3 midfielders there and you don't want all 3 of them on your wage book, because all 3 of them aren't going to be beneficial for you to have over the course of the season, you're going to want to get rid of one of them. And maybe the best option there is Oliver Skipp, because Winks and Sissoko in the last couple of years have been complete and utter trash, and nobody is going to want to spend money to get them into their team. I'd spend money to get them out of our team. So from a financial point of view, it perhaps makes sense to get rid of Skipp, but it would be a shocking decision because, like you said, he's been incredible in pre-season. He played in that Norwich team last year, and I think you can You can, of course, argue that Norwich were in the Championship and the standard of opposition is a lot lower. But I would argue that Norwich team, for the most part, is a Premier League quality side. And the fact that he still stood out among those players who were the best in their division, I think just goes to show how good he was. And he also added quite a bit to his game. I mean, last season we would have said Skipp and Højbjerg are two, sitting defensive midfielders who just break play up. But I think we saw with Skipp in the Championship and Højbjerg in the Euros that they both offer quite a bit more than that. And they're actually very good going forward as well. So there, straight away, Skipp offers more than Winks and Sissoko. So from a footballing point of view, I want him in that team. And I do think he should be in the first team discussion. Obviously, having to earn his place. He'd start the season on the bench if it was down to me and have to fight for that place in there, whether it's getting in ahead of Indomitable or Celso. But even if you did want to play devil's advocate from a footballing point of view, is he not the same player as Højbjerg? Do you actually gain that much from playing the two of them in the same team? You could say that's a bit too defensive, but I think he's very similar to Højbjerg. So there is perhaps a sense of that making that being a bit logical from the footballing standpoint as well.
I suppose you need an understudy for Højbjerg though, because we saw last season he was absolutely knackered by the sort of bottom end of the season. Can
I just add something? Like the point is with Levy, right? I mean, this is on Levy's case now. Anyone who watches football should realise that Winks is probably not going to be a team's first choice. Sissoko definitely isn't. So if you're going to get rid of those players, like Winks has the value of being homegrown, and so there are going to be teams in the Premier League that might think, okay, yeah, like he's got experience in the league, he's a good squad player, like it's not a bad deal to make. But who's going to buy Sissoko when he's 32 in 2 weeks? Like who's going to take that $100,000 off our books? No one in their right in a good frame of mind is going to think that's my first move. They're going to try and get Sissoko at the end of the transfer window for we'll pay 10% of his wages and we'll take him off your hands for a year, right? That's what you're going to get. So the idea of waiting to sell our Deadwood first makes zero sense because no one is going to buy our Deadwood first. So we have to take the risk and say, right, like we're going to add, Bale's wages are off the books, Toby's wages are off the books, Rose, Foyt. There's a number of players that have already gone. Gazaniga, like we've got wages off the books, so we don't need to worry about that. We need to make sure that we've got players in as soon as possible. And then, as awful as this sounds, when you do that, players like Winks might think, you know what, I don't have a future at Spurs. I'd better push to get that move away because. We saw in the first couple of preseason games, Winks was like, I'm going to try my hardest and be something different because as a Spurs fan, he wants to stay.
Well, I mean, that leads me into my next transfer rumour, actually. So I'm glad you dovetailed in there, HG. So Harry Winks linked with talking to various different clubs. But Dave, today it's come out that apparently Southampton might be interested in him. Swap for James Ward-Prowse?
Oh, I'd love it if we swapped it for James Ward-Prowse, but there's no way on earth that Southampton are going to give us James Ward-Prowse for Harry Winks. So I think with Winks, if we get 20 million quid for him or 25 million quid for him, that's a sensational deal. And as I said before, Skipp comes in, English homegrown. That's a swap like for like. If we are in such financial dire straits, then you loan out Winks for the season. You get his salary off the books, which must surely be more than Skipp. You get a loan fee, and we don't have to worry about it. So Winks, if he goes, I think he could go to Southampton or Everton or Newcastle, teams like that. We get some 20 million quid for him, great, and off he goes. He's like the modern day Vinny Samways.
Oh, Vinny Samways, remember him? Yeah. Winks has got to go for me. Look him up. He actually was pretty decent in fits and starts. Honest to God, Winks has got to go this window. I'm not having it. If I have to drive him, like chauffeur him around Premier League clubs like on and Wendy, I will absolutely do that on deadline day. I can't stand that guy being at the club this season. Please, no.
To be fair to Winks, like he's going to, there are going to be teams that are interested. There will be. In the Premier League, there will be teams that want Harry Winks. But of course, they're going to think, well, that they don't necessarily need to get him before the first game of the season. They don't. The other teams aren't in the hurry that maybe Spurs are. Like, obviously, we've got difficult teams early on in the league system anyway, and we play City at home first. But they're going to be thinking, okay, well, we'll do what we can. But they're probably happier with the squad they currently have than Spurs are. Like, you look at if you believe that Athletic article today, it was almost like there are fewer players at Spurs that we definitely want to keep than there are players that we really want to shift. and that tells you how bad of a situation that we're in, and you have to recognize that and just be like, right, I want to get people out the door. I want to make spaces available for players that I do want, and you want to do that as soon as possible. We can't just wait for the best viable offer, because that best offer may come at the end of August. It may come now. You just got to take the offer. If you don't want the player at the club, you've got to take it, whether it's loan or not.
Okay. Tomiyasu, a player who it's all got a bit quiet on. There's a media report today, albeit not a particularly reliable one, that a fee has been agreed with his club, and that he's on his way for 20 million euros, waiting for the Olympics to end. Matt, do you think Tomiyasu, we've had long-standing interest in this guy, and obviously he is Daniel Levy's kind of player in that obviously he's incredibly big in Japan, Far East, would be very marketable. Along with Son, so from a financial perspective, it's a deal that probably makes a lot of sense. And I've heard he's not a bad player either. Do you think that one is likely to happen? Because sort of what I was reading into it from all the stuff I see on Twitter and elsewhere, that it's a backup position in case Romero doesn't fall through. Do you think we'll sign them both?
I personally think we will. Again, that could just be me being overly optimistic, but I see Tomiyasu as a right back for Spurs going forward, because he can play in various different positions. I think last season it was something like 16 games in centre back, 13 in right back, and even 2 in left back for Bologna in this area. But we're getting rid of Aurier. I think I'll be extremely surprised if he's still at the club. Apparently Nuno's willing to listen to offers for Doherty as well. I think Tomiyasu is just a good player to get in. He's versatile. He's not the best right back in Italy. He's not up there, and he won't be one of the best right backs in the Premier League, but he seems like a hard-working player who is just extremely solid and reliable, I'd say, more than anything, which is certainly something we need in our defence after the last couple of years. And I'll be surprised if this one doesn't happen, because we've been so close for so long. I mean, we've had personal terms agreed for 2-3 weeks, and we all knew it was going to go a bit quiet if we didn't get him before the Olympics started. And I don't know if you saw what Alistair Gold said today, that there's a confidence within Tomiyasu's entourage that a deal will be done after the Olympics. So it does seem to be down to those last couple of £1 million between Tottenham and Bologna. And I think it'll be a good addition to our squad, because that versatility, he can play in a right back and a 4, he can play as a right centre back and a 3, if whatever way we are going to approach this season. And he's just reliable, and that's exactly what we need.
You agree with that, Dave? Do you think we need this guy?
A guy called Pat Chan, who's on the Cheese Room chat, who really praises him and says that he's a good player. It's a bit of a punt. I mean, what was it, 15-16 million quid for someone who was at a lower league Serie A club last year? He can't be any worse than Serge Aurier. Therefore, we should get him in.
Yeah, no. I mean, my daughter's no worse than Serge Aurier. I mean, she's just as likely to concede a penalty. Okay.
Your daughter's less prone to irrational decision making than Serge Aurier as well, no doubt.
I don't know. You haven't seen her arguing about what's for dinner. So, trust me, the conversations get pretty irrational. I suppose the biggest concern is, and a lot of people who are watching will be feeling this. I'm just going to shout out Bob. Romero is and should be the number 1 target and marquee signing, irrelevant of how he performs, would show intent and ambition. Well, I'd like him to perform as well, really, Bob. Anyone else will suggest that, as your attitude, get it done. Hopefully Levy is watching. And Death in the Spotlight says Winks peaked with that game against Real Madrid, and he was 21. Normally a player improves at that age or with age. Yeah, I totally agree with that as well. The first game against City is 16 days from now? 16 days, 17 days, 16 days. Is it a concern that, I mean, I know you think it's a concern, HG, so I'm not going to ask you. I'm going to ask you, Dave. Is it a concern that we've really haven't sorted the squad out yet? There's still dead wood to clear. We made a promising start, got rid of, Lamella, Rose and Toby. Toby's as probably our best defender. There's more dead wood to clear, isn't there? Is it not a concern that we're not further down the rebuild road than we are? Are you worried about that going into City?
It's the usual with Enic, sorry. But we've got, 20-odd years now, and we do our business late in the window, or not at all. And that's the way we do it. I think this Romero thing is the first real test of the Nuno, Paratici, Levy new structure. because the fact of the matter is, if we don't get him in, who else are we going to get in? He is the important signing we need to have. But we've got other areas of the pitch we need to sort out as well. We need a second striker. So I don't know if you're going to get on to talk about it, but the link to the Serb guy who plays for Fiorentina, we need a second striker. I think Kane will be out 30 to 40% of the season with injury. Sorry, but that's what I think. And we need a second striker. I think the Bergwijn, Mora, Ali, I wouldn't be surprised if one of them goes just before the end of the window. And I think you got the end on Bella and Lo Celso issues as well. So I am worried, but it's usual. The best starts to the season that we make is when we do our business early. So if you remember when we qualified for the Champions League for the very first time, we got Crouchy in early in that window. We had to get Cranshaw in because Modric broke his leg. We did our business early. We didn't sell anyone, and that was it. You get a team in pre-season, you get them training, and we've got a new manager as well and settled, then off we go. So it's the same old, same old. Our only thing of optimism on the City first game of the season is we might get them cold. So we might be fortunate there.
Okay, thanks, Dave. You mentioned a Serb guy.
Yeah.
Vlahovic.
Yep.
I presume you mean. Matt, Is there any updates you've heard on that transfer? I mean, he's number one target if Kane goes, certainly, isn't he? I'm not sure I'm expecting him to be incoming, if not, because he's going to want to be the main man, isn't he?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think he meant Vlahovic. But yeah, Fabrizio Romano has been saying that there is a bit of an interest there, which is, to be expected. I think aside from the targets that Spurs have been looking at consistently throughout the window, he's probably the name I've seen mentioned the most in terms of players that are attracting interest from around Europe. And it is from the big clubs as well. Now, the concern is a lot of those reports have said that they're valuing him at up as far as €70 million, which is, of course, an absolutely massive ask. But he's still young. I think he's only 21. At the moment, he scored 21 goals in 37 games for Fiorentina last season. He's tall. I think he's 6'2" as well. So he's that type of player that you think would be able to acclimatise to the Premier League fairly quickly. Of course, with the existing concern that a lot of players do struggle to do that. But I know, as you mentioned there, but later on in the window, it was Alistair Gold who said that there is an interest there, but it's probably something that will be looked at a bit closer to deadline day, because Spurs just do have more pressing issues to solve. And in some way, I do think it's a good sign that we are trying to solve those first 11 issues before moving on to adding a bit of depth to that squad. Because in the past, I think you could put the criticism on Spurs that they haven't really approached the transfer window with that much kind of logical thought and stuff. So that's good, but do I think it's going to happen? I really don't. For me, it has the same feeling as the Jules Koundé deal, with the player maybe being a bit of a smaller name, but there'll be bigger teams in for him, and Spurs will eventually, if we do pursue it, probably just be priced out of the deal.
Well, I'd agree with that. Bob Spurs just hit the super chat button, so thanks very much for that, Bob. You can't help but get the as you were feeling right now. Romero should be the priority. Anyone else will show lack of ambition and must. Thanks very much for your super chat, Bob. And if anyone else would like to put one through, then please feel free, and we will get your comment on the air. HG Sessegnon, he's not featured much pre-season. He's had a bit of a hamstring injury, coming back from a season in a faraway place. Hoffenheim, wasn't it? I think, if I remember.
Germany.
Hoffenheim, yeah.
Well, that is a faraway place, isn't it? Especially from you, Dave. It's like 3,000 miles away.
Everywhere's far away from me, but it's not far away from you.
Well, I have to get on a plane to get there, so that counts. Is he going to feature much this season, do you think? I mean, for me, Sessegnon's a player. He's still only, 22 years old?
21.
21. I mean, that's incredible. So he's a player we put a big fee down for, 25 million quid. I can't imagine us dropping 25 million on a prospect right now.
We did that last week. What are you talking about?
Hill. No, I think Hill's further down the road than Sessegnon, isn't he? He's much further down the road than Sessegnon. Do you think Sessegnon will be part of this side?
Look, if we play 4-3-3, no, frankly. I think Reguilon and Davies would be the left backs in those situations. And is he good enough to play left wing with Bergwijn and Son in the side? No, he won't get much time. If we do go 3-4-3, then yeah. Then Davies would become one of the left-sided centre-backs and Sessegnon and Reguilon would be the wing-back. But it's a strange one, because if we do go 4-3-3, where does he play? It's no different than the dilemma that Fulham had when they played him. They realised that at Championship level he was good enough to play as the winger, And then when he got to the Premier League, he couldn't really do either. He wasn't strong enough. He wasn't. I mean, the thing is, it was more mentally strong than anything else because he was such a young kid. I don't worry about it because I suppose Spurs will have options regardless. But it's a strange one for Sessegnon. Like it makes you wonder what Pochettino's plan for him was. I have a feeling it was to play him at left back, and when Pochettino was at the end of his career, we did have our fullbacks play really high up the pitch. So I imagine that was the deal. But if we're not asking that, then I don't know where Sessegnon goes. And there's nothing against Sessegnon, but he may well end up being one of those pieces that we could use to get someone else. Certainly, if it was from a Premier League team, if there was someone in the Premier League that we thought actually, we wouldn't mind having them, Sessegnon might be one to go. And that's harsh on Sessegnon because he's barely played for Spurs.
Yeah.
But where does he fit? And unless we go 3-4-3, I don't think he fits.
Well,
really
HT. Well, HT. That's my next question. Matt, we've lined up, and I was there at the MK Dons game, which we'll briefly cover in a minute. We've lined up 4-3-3 in pretty much to start with in all those pre-season friendlies. Obviously, Nuno's played that a little bit last season at Wolves as well, rather unsuccessfully, if I might say so, Nuno. What's your feeling? How do you think we're going to start the season? Because I was on the fence about the old three centre-backs, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. When you look at our full-backs, Sessegnon potentially could play wing-back. Reguilon is a better wing-back than he is left-back.
100%.
And then you've got on the right, Doherty, and you could even make the case Aurier is a better wing-back as well, because most of his good work is as far away from his penalty area as possible, where he can't give a penalty away. So, it does seem to me that short of having the centre-backs to play the system, and again, you could say that with Sanchez and Rodent being quite quick, there wouldn't be an issue there with centre-backs either. You could say that our players that we have favour a sort of wing-back situation. Do you think that's likely to occur? What do you think his go-to formation is going to be, particularly as we open against Manchester City, who are a team who we know are going to dominate the possession?
I think you touched on the problem there. We have the wing backs to play it. We have the front men to play it. We have the midfielders to play it, but we don't have the centre backs to play three centre backs. We barely have the centre backs to play two centre backs at this point. So I do think it does simply come down to how we do in the window. I was hoping when he came in that it would be a three at the back, because that's where he did. It's where he played his best football at Wolves. He got them from a championship team to back-to-back seventh-place finishes and to a quarter-final of the Europa League. So within kind of an English style of football, a three at the back does suit him. And I don't think he played 4-3-3 or four at the back, whatever formation it was, by choice at Wolves last season. I do think it was down to potentially losing Doherty in the window and Semedo not being as good as I thought when he was coming in. Their injury to, was it Johnny at left back, then ended up playing Ray and Aït-Nouri, who's of course a much younger player out there, and a few other issues around the park. I really don't think that squad was best suited to four at the back, and I do think he knew that. Even Connor Cody, you could say, just didn't quite perform in there. Look, it may not be the kind of traditional centre-backs or the orthodox centre-backs that we're looking at right now that could end up playing back there for Spurs, because what he did at Wolves and what he did with a lot of success was play players like Romain Saiss and Leander Dendoncker back in those positions, and they became mainstays within that Wolves team when they wouldn't have gotten into that midfield with João Moutinho and Ruben Neves. So looking at the squad right now, I would say it is going to be a four at the back, especially like I mentioned earlier, the fact that he may be willing to sanction the sale of Matt Doherty. But it's not like he hasn't been successful in the four at the backs. He played that at Valencia in La Liga in one of his first jobs, and he did quite well there as well. So he does have that ability to play both of them. Whether he has the personnel to play three at the back is debatable, but whether he has the experience in England to play four at the back is debatable. So I think we really could sit here for the next 16 days before that game against Man City and make kind of arguments for and against what he's going to play. But if I had to make a prediction right now, I would say it will be a four at the back, because if we want to play two up top, whether it's Kane and Ings or Kane and Vlahovic or Kane and Scarlett, with the way our window's going, if you're playing a three at the back, where do you play Son? Because Reguilon's going to be out on the left-hand side as a left wing-back. Son played one game as left wing-back for Spurs, gave away a penalty, and we lost 4-2 to Chelsea in the semi-final of the FA Cup. So I don't think Nuno's foolish enough to put him out there. So the personnel we have now, I would say it's a four at the back, but I'd rather there was a bit of a different dynamic within that squad.
And what's your thoughts on it, Dave? Have you got a view? Would you rather see three at the back or the four? I'll welcome to you as well, HG, in a minute.
I'd rather see three at the back. What concerns me a little bit with the 4-3-3 is how does that midfield three line up? Because I saw one formation where you have one defensive midfielder, one a bit more advanced, and then one playing in the number 10 position. And I presume that when we're defending the front three, the two on each flank, the one on each flank of the front three come back and support the fullbacks. And I don't think we've quite got the personnel to do that, to be honest. I'd rather have three at the back. I think our fullbacks are, as you said, they're more like wing backs. I much prefer Reguilon bombing forward and less defensive responsibilities. Sessegnon, I think, would be more suited to do there. And then on the right-hand side, you got Doherty, who played his best as a wing-back, and maybe Tomiyasu, whatever his name again, sorry.
Tomiyasu.
Tomiyasu. Yeah, he can play right-sided centre-back or a right wing-back, and we can get rid of Serge. But so far, in the pre-season friendlies, he's playing 4-3-3, which lends itself to think that that's what he's going to start the season with. And I think, from a midfield point of view, that's got a lot of weakness.
HG, how does our midfield hold up in that situation? Who would your first sort of choice be? What would it look like?
Well, if we're talking about the first game against Man City, then I'd have Højbjerg and Skipp, and probably Dombele, if I'm honest, to try and get out of the press. That means no spot for Dele, which I'd be okay with. It might mean Son and Kane and either Bergwijn or Lo Celso up top. Probably Bergwijn because the pace, like with Man City, don't want to defend. They don't enjoy defending. You've got to give them something to think about. That would be the front three. But yeah, like it's tough because like we've all said that right now the players we have lend themselves to playing three at the back. Like if we start in 2 weeks' time and our back three is Davies, Romero, and Tomiyasu, that's immediately better than anything that we can pick right now.
To be there.
No, but I'm just saying, as a left-sided centre-back, we all know that he's capable of doing it, right? And we're going to be defending a lot in that game. He's got a decent passing range, Davies, that I just think that could work. The balance would be better. If Tomiyasu can play right-sided centre-back and is comfortable going forward, then great. But again, that's still two players that we don't have. If it's Davies, flipping Sanchez and Dyer, then we're all thinking, oh no. If Rodon's involved, we're thinking, okay, it might be better, but we still don't know because we don't really know what we've got with him. It's like what it's so bad that I can't imagine. But even we got Man City who don't play a striker, and we'd have a back three, and we'd still look nervous marking no one. But if you think of a back four with the players that we've got, it doesn't really work there either. We don't have a true screening midfielder because Højbjerg can do it and Skipp can do it. But we're missing somewhere else. So I just, the City game, it's weird because at the end of the season, if you're 3 points behind, which is more than possible with Spurs, then those early games matter. Like playing City at home is a game where you'd probably be happy if you don't lose. Let's be honest. We'd like to win it. We've won it in previous seasons, but we all know that deep down, City on their day will wipe the floor with us. So it's a tough one to play first game. Like we'd all rather it wasn't that case, but yeah, I do think three at the back suits the players that we have right now. It suits the players that we're looking to sign. Maybe we're just playing four at the back because we don't have much choice right now. We don't have the centre backs who are training with Spurs. I mean that's another thing. We're playing Carter Vickers, who started every game. Carter Vickers, Dyer, and Tanganga have been our centre backs so far. There's a good chance that two of them won't be at the club when the window's done, if not all three.
You leave Dyer alone.
No, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, there's a very good chance. Like, Dyer is one of those players that teams in the Premier League would probably want.
Yeah.
I believe that. And so if we don't, I don't necessarily see him as being the first choice to go, but I didn't see that about Toby either. So we really don't know what's going to happen. I just, the way we are, three at the back suits us in so many ways.
Yeah,
I can only hope that the only reason we haven't done it in preseason so far is because Rodon hasn't been back training. Davies has only just got back. Dyer, Sanchez. I mean, Sanchez has been at the Copa America. Like, we are short of numbers there, even if the numbers we do have aren't great. So
there is all of that in the mix. There is all of that in the mix. I do think that people are forgetting that when they're looking at the first couple of games pre-season and thinking, oh, he's playing a four, he's playing a four, he's playing a four. Most of our players have been away on international duty and are still being integrated back into the squad. So I do think you've got a good point there, HG.
The funny thing is, like, players like Callum Cisse and Pascozzi, I'm pretty certain that Pascozzi was a centre-back. when I saw him last season. I'm pretty certain that Callum Cisse was playing right back when I saw him for the youth team at Wimbledon in their cup game. So, like, the players that we have played are I mean, there's no way Callum Cisse would be playing pre-season football if we didn't have half the squad travelling back from various competitions. He just wouldn't be. Niall John, fair enough. You could see that happening. Dane Scarlett, fair enough. But Cisse, no, not for me. He wouldn't be involved if we were clearly short of numbers. So it's... But it is a worry because we just
Phil Ambrose brings up there Cameron Carter-Vickers played in pre-season for what seems like 10 years in a row. It really does. He's like, and he is a unit. I was there the other night. The size of the guy, he's massive. I mean, you call him fat or well-built or muscular or whatever. He is a unit, absolute unit. Surely that guy's got to be released from the club or sold for a low fee at some point. I think we've triggered the extension on his contract as well, haven't we?
He's due a testimonial. He's been a long service to the club. He's been on so many tours. It's unbelievable. He's been on every pre-season tour.
He's been on more tours than most of the SAS. I'll tell you that now.
And I don't know if I'm right, but I think he's older than Romero. Right? To put it in perspective, I think Carter-Vickers is older than Romero.
I think he's older than Hugo, isn't he?
Well, what did you see the game? I was at Milton Keynes Dons versus Spurs the other night. Matt, no, HG, did you watch any of it?
I watched some of it. Rapid Vienna were playing the Champions League game, so I was watching that instead. Look, I saw the goals. I saw some of the patterns of play in the first half. I had it kind of on a second screen, so I wasn't paying a great deal of attention. But look, we looked decent. I mean, Moura had his usual good touches in pre-season. It's like Lamela in the Europa League looked decent against crap. Nothing's really changed there. Bergwijn was his usual self, really solid on the ball until it came to actually shooting, and then he was all over the shop. But yeah, that front three actually looked all right. And to be fair to MK, they gave us a hard game. They tried to play their style of football. They weren't worried about that it was Spurs. They were all about making themselves be the best that they can be, and they made it difficult for us. So I think we had to play quite well in the end to get the goals that we did. But look, it's tough because we've seen it before. I mean, Dave said it himself today. Lucas Moura may not be here at the end of the window. He's playing because for some reason Jack Clark can't get a game no matter what level we're playing at.
Unbelievable.
It's like in attacking areas, despite losing Bale, we still have a number of options. That is true. And if we're playing 3-4-3, I still think that's true. I don't mind if Son plays a little bit inside. I don't mind if Bergwijn plays more inside. Lamela was better. Lucas played pretty well inside last season just because he gets the ball and he runs at people and he commits people, which no one likes that. So I understand that when it works, it can look great. But the MK game, there were good signs. I don't like Dele as this as a number 8 playing a bit of everything. I don't really like that. I think he's better up top, but playing with someone. I think his best moments again, like with the goal he scored. He was playing as a second striker in effect. He was the furthest man forward because Son was out a bit wider. It's those things that are going to help us, but it's tough to read too much into it because we are so short on players that we know will be involved.
Dave, Moura was so bright. Bergwijn, great energy and no end product. Very true. He missed at least 3 half chances right in front of me. Talk of selling Moura, not for me. Thoughts? Would you sell Lucas, the hero of Amsterdam?
Look, I think you've got Bergwijn, Moura, and Ali, who you could sell one out of the 3 of them. I think Bergwijn. I mean, look, surprisingly, Tottenham v MK Dons pre-season friendly wasn't live on Australian terrestrial television. It has something called the Olympics on. Don't understand why.
It's on the website. It's on the website, Dave. Come on.
For free. We don't have to get that off the club.
Levy sorted you right out, mate, and you just ignored him.
He emailed me directly in a shrewd fashion to tell me it was free.
8 million times.
Yes, I saw clips of it on Instagram, and Bergwijn looks like he's got a lot of energy. He's moving around with pace. My concern with Bergwijn is his finishing. I don't think he's really got to improve. If he's going to play at the top 3, he has got to improve his finishing, and this season is crucial for him. Lucas Moura, we know what he's all about, and I think at his age, 28, 29, improve from the player that he actually is now. He's an impact player off the bench at best, but frankly, we've got a lot of good impact players off the bench. We just can't start them. So I think Moura, if we get a good offer for him, I'd send him on his way. Or Dele, if we get an offer for him, he could go as well, because unless he's playing up top, he doesn't suit the midfield, and that's what Nuno's been doing in the pre-season friendlies. So I think one out of those three we could get rid of.
Okay. Matt, which one would you sell, keep, or avoid?
I don't think Dele needs to go just yet. Now, I am a staunch fan of him, and I got a lot of abuse for it last season. Rightly so, he was terrible. But you can't have the quality that he had within that side in a few years where he was actually like one of the best players in that team, and it just fade away. Like, you can argue that he's a system player and all that, but he scored 18 goals in a Premier League season. As a midfielder, or as a second forward, whatever you want to say, that is an incredible return. Like, that is an absolutely sensational return. He broke records set by Lampard, Gerrard, and there was some other midfielder in there of like people who are seen as the best midfielders of all time for getting those numbers. Such. I don't know if it was goals. Was he a goal scorer? I don't remember him playing.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
My God, you're so young.
Oh, Matt, you're so young. That upsets me so much.
Matt,
Well, look, Dele
you just impressed me.
That's what I'm here for, Dave. But yeah, I think we need to give Dele a bit more of a chance. And like, realistically, I don't think his stock is going to go down at any point. So if we sell him, if we keep him for this year, I don't think the price we get from next year will be less than what we get from now. But there is a chance of him turning things around and becoming a good player for Spurs. If Nuno does play a variation of a 4-4-1-1 or something like that, Dele could absolutely thrive. And to kind of bring it back to one of the targets we had earlier, I think Dele would play very well alongside a Vlahovic type of player, because he could be that player who would target it with the long balls, he could cushion it down. I know that's not the way we want Spurs to play, but it's certainly an option. If we are going to end up with Wings and Sissoko in the middle of the park, as much as we bypass that as possible, will be good. I think Dele needs a chance, to be honest. Can I
come back on that, if that's all right?
Yeah.
Of course.
I think, look, Dele, when he burst on the scene in those first 2 or 3 seasons, was fantastic, right? You know, Eriksen pinpointing passes onto his head. Those 2 goals against Chelsea at home, peak Dele. But really, the person who's usurped Dele to play alongside the main striker is Son. Son's just signed a contract for 200 grand a week for another 4 years. And you even see in the little clips that Son really kind of thinks he's the main man now, in a nice way. But he's got that, or I've made my commitment to the club if there's no breakout clause. And I think Dele, the only way he's going to play is alongside Kane, and that's Son's role now. I don't think he's a good enough player to play in the midfield. And unfortunately, I think his time's passed. And he's only 24, and I get all that. And maybe he doesn't show the same kind of single-minded dedication that Kane does, but there are different players with different personalities to manage. So if we got an offer for him, I don't think he's a massive loss. He's just not performed in the last 2 to 3 years. And he got too comfortable under Pochettino, who would never drop him.
Yeah. I do think Pochettino is the reason that Dele, or is part of the reason Dele was so good there, because Dele seems like that type of player who needs, I use the phrase father figure as a coach, because that's what a lot of those players kind of, that's how they describe Pochettino. And even back to times at MK Dons, he had Carl Robinson as a manager there, and he very much was that type of man as well. So it's no surprise that he struggled under Jose Mourinho. And of course, there was that uplift in his form at the beginning, but for any player playing under Jose Mourinho, you're gonna have that initial kind of being starstruck with all that. But there's a comment there that even says, we all know why Jose wasn't picking Dele Alli, and he made his fortnight comment today, which of course didn't help Dele Alli during his time at the club, or during his time under Jose. But yeah, I think different managers is a big factor in Dele's sort of form.
Crooked Oaks has chucked in a super chat. Thank you very much, mate. Massive thanks from the Choose Room podcast. He says, sell Bergwijn before Moura. And also Ten Hag has said he would like Bergwijn so that foot is in the door. So, yeah, that Bergwijn back to Ajax could happen, I suppose, or go to Ajax. He wasn't at Ajax before, but he's Dutch, isn't he? So he'd probably quite like that move.
Caller, you were so close, because he started his career at Ajax. I was like, Coley, you're great. I can't believe you knew that fact.
Oh,
That before he went to PSV and then you corrected yourself.
Oh, you see, this is why you are the Harlow Globetrotter, because you have this European content football. Well, either way, he was going to start at PSV or Ajax, wasn't he? So there's only really 2 teams in that league. So, if we sold either of them, for my money, I wouldn't be fussed if Mora went. I wouldn't be fussed if Bergwijn went. But for me, what you've said rings true about Dele, Matt, and HG. I know you're a big fan. Dave, maybe a bit less so. Dele's got class. Dele can do it. We know he can do it. The other 2 have done it in games. Dele's done it in seasons. And that for me and he's a unique talent. I don't see many players like Dele have his level of ability in the Premier League. It's just about unlocking it and working out how we get the best out of Dele Alli for me.
Now, don't get me wrong. I think Dele's a great player. But he was a great player, what we're looking at now, 2 to 3 years ago. Yeah. So we're waiting for Dele. And I think, just back to Matt's point again, it's really easy for Tottenham fans and the players to go, we've got to blame everything on Mourinho's door, right? And I've said this before. I mean, we had 18 months of Mourinho. It didn't last that long, all right? And everyone's putting the blame on his door. Someone like Kane was genuinely disappointed that they got rid of him just before the cup final because he's a winner. And I think that it's really easy for the likes of some players to completely give up any accountability for their performances. And I will keep going back to Zagreb and say, oh, it's all Mourinho because he's such an awful person. Sorry, you've got to take some accountability for your performances and effort as well.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone disagrees with that. Certainly not in that Zagreb match. But ultimately, Mourinho's the manager. He carries the can, doesn't he? That's his job, is to motivate the players. They weren't motivated for that game. They were flipping the opposite.
Can I make a quick point on that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
I do think people do put a lot more blame on Jose than he perhaps deserves. He deserves a lot of blame. He refused to make some changes that he should have made. He was kind of too stubborn in his own ways to change and do what needed to be done. But I saw fantastic. It's actually a screenshot of notes on an iPhone on the Daily Hotspur a few months back, and he made the point of why Jose Mourinho has kind of decreased in quality of a manager. And if you look at the teams that he was so successful in, you want to take that Inter Milan team, for example. In that team, you had Javier Zanetti, you had Diego Milito, you had Walter Samuel, I think Esteban Cambiasso was in there for a while. On that team, he had 11 players who would do anything for the badge, who knew they had to do what their manager wanted to do in order to get into that team and to be successful in that team. Every single one of them would buy into what Jose said. If Jose Mourinho came in the dressing room and said, right, we're scoring 3 own goals at the start of the game, they would do that because they knew what the manager wanted and they trusted in him and were willing to buy into what he wanted to do. At Spurs, that's not going to happen. And there's not many teams in the world right now where that will happen because players have so much power within football, because the brand of a club for a lot of the time is surrounded around their players. And the players know that if they underperform for 3, 4, 5 months, that the manager is going to go out the door. So when Jose's coming in and still using these the kind of philosophies that he used in his early time as a manager, yes, the players should buy out into what the manager wants to do. But Jose, if he was good enough as a manager in modern day football, will be able to adapt to the needs of a dressing room and be able to adapt to a way where he can get the best out of his players. And the best way I can describe that is I got a magazine a few months ago. I don't even know what it was, but there's an article in there about Bill Nicholson. And I was reading through it and I was like, every single thing that I'm hearing right now, every single thing that I'm reading, I think is a very accurate description of Jose Mourinho. And on one part you could say, oh, that's fantastic. He's just like one of our most successful, if not our most successful ever managers. But that's 60 years ago. So much has changed then, not just within football, but society as a whole. Everything has changed. Totally, it's a different world. It's a different sport. If Jose was good enough, he would adapt and be able to do what is needed to be successful in a team right now. That's why he failed at United. That's why he failed at Tottenham. And that's why he's now in a kind of second tier Serie A team.
So you look at what he did at United. He got them to second behind a very good City team. He won the Europa Cup. He won the League Cup, which if he'd have delivered that for Tottenham in the nightmare year and a half he was with us, we'd all get the champagne out, right? You look at the window last year where we were all going, look how much money Levy spent and this, that and the other. We spent net 60 million quid and we made the decision not to buy Skriniar, and Levy, and it was Levy's choice, was made the decision to spend 16 million quid on getting Gareth Bale in. Now, if you're telling me to compare the value and importance of having Bale at the club last season versus having Skriniar at the club last season, I think that would have made a massive difference to have. to have Skriniar and not Bale. So again, Mourinho, when he came in, I supported it. I thought it makes sense because if we want to go that extra step and win a trophy, he's the person to do it, and it made sense to me. I could have put up, and I've said this on the Cheese Room before, I could put up with the football not being that good if we'd have had success along the way. That would have been fine 100%. With me. But the wheels fell off pretty quickly. And again, as I said, the players all too quickly in that squad were happy to blame Jose because they reached that point in time they knew he'd be out the door.
I mean, yeah, I mean, what you're saying is basically very similar to Matt and very similar to me. I'd agree with it. You know, I manage people at work. I would manage a 21-year-old and a 50-year-old very differently. And I don't think that Jose has adapted his management style to be able to put his arm around people. And whether you like it or not, the generation of younger people today are far more mollycoddled, if you like, than people were 20 years ago or 10 years ago even. And I just don't think that Jose has adapted. But we are going over very old ground here with Jose Mourinho.
But which managers would you say have adapted to do that over the years, right? Because you could say, so you look at Guardiola, you could look at Klopp, right? And you could probably say they are managers for now and have honed their craft of dealing with this generation of players. Have they adapted to dealing with different generations of players? Maybe Guardiola, maybe.
But they haven't needed to.
I was about to say they don't need to, yeah.
Like this is their generation of player. I mean, that's just it.
But this is their generation now, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, they've been. Guardiola's been a manager for what, 10, 12 years now? 13 years since he took over at Barcelona. Klopp's been about the same amount of time when he started at Mainz and then he went to Dortmund first. This is their time. Mourinho, even if it's only been 6 or 7 years longer, he's made that step and the others haven't needed to. It is a case where I don't even think modern players are that different. There's just an understanding that nowadays you don't get anywhere by calling people shit. Like they don't respond well to that. You don't publicly say to someone, "Oh yeah, what Mourinho did to Luke Shaw and what he did to Dele." Those things are old hat and deservedly so. I don't want to go back to the time of when it used to be okay to say to people, well, you need to man up a bit and take responsibility for your own actions. You've just taken responsibility for your own action by saying publicly that this person's rubbish. Like those days are over. Like Mourinho has never claimed responsibility for anything he's ever done. If it was bad, if it was good, it was all him. But if it was bad, oh well, no, you're the players. I mean, they're the ones on the pitch. Nothing to do with me. He's not taking responsibility either. It just seems that I would rather have a manager right now who understands that if you want to get someone to do well, don't treat them like shit. And I don't think it's that difficult to do.
Just to answer Dave's question.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, just to answer Dave's question, there's one manager I think perfectly fits that bill. I don't know if you know the story of Mauricio Pochettino when he was at Espanyol in 1998, when Marcelo Bielsa was in charge. And Bielsa came in and he, one of the first things he did, he brought Pochettino into his office and he was like, how do you think you did last season? And Poch said, I think I had a decent season. I was playing well. I got and he rated the season maybe 7 or 8 out of 10. And Bielsa said, no, you're absolutely rubbish. And he slated his entire season, all this and all that. And Pochettino used that as motivation to become better the next season. Not only because Bielsa was his figure within football, his role model, but because he knew, well, if he's saying that, I probably wasn't good enough. But now you look at Marcelo Bielsa at Leeds, and the team called him Grandad because he's managed to kind of change his philosophies and the way he manages teams to suit the modern game. So I just thought that was an interesting kind of example of someone who has, because there's probably not many out there.
That's a really good point, Matt, because I hadn't thought of Bielsa, but I think that's a great point because he's been around for a long time and he's got that Leeds team playing to the cult of him. The other example I'd give, my original point is what manager has had a career where they've adapted to different personalities, right? So my example would be Ferguson, right? He inherited, let me finish. He inherited a Man United team which had a massive drinking culture. Brian Robson, Norman Whiteside, Paul McGrath. He got rid of all of them. And all this thing about the hairdryer treatment and this, that, and the other, in my opinion, is a bit of a fallacy. And he had to adapt. Don't forget, he had towards the tail end of his career someone like Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, you look at a personality like Cristiano Ronaldo versus your Norman Whitesides and your Brian Robsons, totally two different types of personalities. And he was also very clever as well because he changed his coaching staff repeatedly. and he had different techniques and coaching. He kept it fresh. And, I would say he's one of the few examples who has adapted to managing different generations of players and getting the best out of them.
I'm not sure I would get on kicking football boots at people's head these days, though, if I'm really honest, Dave. But I take your point. He did span a very, very long career and was incredibly successful. I'm going to switch gears slightly and talk about a debate that was. I've got a couple of bits left. A debate that was raging in a chat group I was in today. Matt may have seen it.
Don't do this, Carter.
I just wanted to get the sage wisdom of Dave and HG and yourself, Matt, on this. So, if it was, what does success look like this season? Is it winning a cup or is it getting into the top 4? So, I want each of your views on this, and we can have a little bit of back and forth if necessary, or we all might just agree. You never know. HG, I'm going to kick off with you.
Can't see that happening.
What does it look like for you this season? Is top 4 success, or is winning a cup more important to you?
If you gave me the choice, I had to pick one. It would be top 4. Absolutely. I mean, I understand the value of saying on the honours roll, trophies mean this, that, and the other. What trophies really mean stuff these days? Like for Spurs fans, all of them do because we don't win anything. But if you think about we're in a 16 league in effect. You can count Leicester if you want, but when it comes to revenue, it's a 16 league. If you finish in the top 4, you've done well, right? You are not one of the 2 that have missed out. It has to mean something. It has to help. But the thing is, if we finished 6th but actually looked like we were doing well, I'd be okay with that. But if you said to me, look, which would I prefer? Yeah, I want Champions League football. I want Spurs to be the club that can handle a Champions League workload and a Premier League workload. That's what we were for a couple of seasons. I want us to get back there. And the only way we can do that is by finishing top 4.
Okay. Dave?
Okay. I would want top 4. I don't think we'll get top 4. So I think Nuno's got a 2-year contract. Okay. So I think success looks like this season, he gets 5th Europa. We win a domestic cup, because I'm sick and tired of every game I watch, the commentator in 5 minutes says we haven't won anything since 2008. And there's a feel-good factor. The crowds are back in the stadium. We buy into Nuno. We play football that it may be pragmatic, but it'll be attractive counter-attacking. We need the feel-good factor back. So to me, this season, the first season of his 2-year contract, we get into the Europa, we win a domestic cup competition, and we play football that we enjoy, and the crowd buy into Nuno. That's what I want.
Dave, what's more important, Champions League football or winning a domestic trophy?
No. Don't get me wrong. I want top 4.
So no. What's more important to you? Finishing in the top 4 or winning the Europa Conference League, the League Cup, or the FA Cup?
I'm not interested. Right, okay, the Europa Conference League, I couldn't give a monkeys about. Right, if we won the FA Cup or the League Cup and got 5th this season, I'd be happy with that. But ultimately, what's most important to the club is top 4. Yes, but we need to win a trophy.
Yeah. Okay. Matt, your view?
I just kind of follow on from a point that Dave's made there. I personally don't see this season or what we're doing now as the beginning of the Nuno Espirito Santo era. I think Nuno is a small little cog in the beginning of the Paratici era at Spurs, because Paratici and what he's building is going to be at the club for much longer than Nuno is. And I think you can see that by the 2-year deal that we're bringing in right now. And Spurs, we're in the position we were in 2014 when we brought in Mauricio Pochettino, and that we're trying to build something long term. And we're trying to build a club into what it very nearly was 2 years ago, into a team who are consistently in top 4, who can then push on to the level where you consistently win trophies. Because winning a trophy, winning the Worthington Cup in 1999 is fantastic. Winning the Carling Cup in 08 is fantastic. But there's a reason there's nothing in between. And it's because trophies don't breed more success. I made the point in the group chat that Wigan, Birmingham and Swansea in the last decade have all won domestic trophies in Spurs. And where are they now? They're down in the Championship and League One respectively. What we need is something that can build this club and that can attract players. If we were in the Champions League in the last 2 years, our centre-back partnership right now is Milan Skriniar and Jules Koundé. And I don't think there's many people out there that can debate that, because both of them want Champions League football, and rightly so. They're world-class centre-backs. And we couldn't afford the 2 of them because we didn't have the funds that would have been brought up if we had been in Champions League football. Our most financially active window in recent memory is the 2019 we brought in Ndombele and Celso. You can debate all you want about the quality of that window, but the reason we spent £130 million on two midfielders is we just got into a Champions League final. There's prize money, there's TV rights money, there's sponsorship money within that allowed us to do that. So I actually made the point as well that there's nothing, I 100% enjoy winning a trophy more, but to look at the long-term success and the long-term sustainability of this football club, we need to be back in the Champions League because it just opens so many doors that right now are firmly shut for this football team.
I'll give you my view for what it's worth, because I can see, Dave, you especially are very interested in it. I think top four is the enabler, as Matt's touched on, and yourself, HG, to everything. So for the club, for the business, we need top floor football to attract the best players in the world, which will then enable us to win cups. Quite frankly, and this will shock you, the European Conference League is probably more important than winning the FA Cup or the League Cup. If we're going to win a cup, that's the one we should prioritise. And I say that for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's automatic entry into the Europa League, so it's a good fallback position in case we have a shocker, which is possible, let's face it. And secondly, the prize money is only, I think, 12 million less than the Europa League. So easily helps our financial plight far more than the FA Cup or the League Cup. So whilst it might be a Farmers League, whilst it might be Mickey Mouse, and whilst we might only think Roma and us are the only two decent teams in it, there are some incentives for winning that league. There really are. So I honestly think that would be a good move to pursue that. But for me, success looks like top four. That is the be all and end all for me. It is top four. For the purely, let's get the best players back in the club, attract some star quality to the club. You know, Kane would be staying, wouldn't be wanting to leave if we were playing the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Munich in group stage European nights. That's what people want. That's what the fans want. They want to see Spurs competing at the top table, and the Champions League is the top table.
I think there's a clear, like we've had Kane, right, the best striker that Spurs have seen in 50 years, and it's not really a coincidence to me that having Kane has meant we had regular Champions League football. If Kane goes, we will struggle regardless, right? Kane is the goal scorer. Well, hopefully the stadium and hopefully the finances will mean we can go out and buy players that are good enough to replace Kane. But that all depends on COVID. It depends on many, many things. But Kane is the reason why we've had the 4 or 5 seasons that we had, where we were in the Champions League regularly because of his goal scoring in the Premier League. That's why. So we lose him, there's a massive issue. But it has to be, to me, the goal that the top four has to be it. Like everyone else is strengthening. Man United are a much better side right now than they were at the end of last season. Even Arsenal, if you look at the first 11 that Arsenal could have, that's not a bad team now. Spurs are still short in a couple of areas. But yeah, if we can somehow eke top four, and it would be eking it because I don't think we'd do it comfortably. If we can do that with Kane around, because without Kane, we can't do it. I really believe that Kane is our only shot at having top four this season if he stays fit and if he stays right. I just for Spurs to be what we want them to be, what we've seen, we have to have top four. And attracting players, yes, it's obviously important, but for Spurs to be what I want them to be. Forget about other players coming in. For the team, for them to be the team I want to support, the team that I want to see do really well after 25 years of mediocrity, top four is the way to do that. It just is. Okay.
Brad, hi Brad. Great having you on the show the other week. Has done a super chat for us. Thanks very much. We appreciate it, Brad. Given Paratici's comments about paying to get the players you want, is the Paratici era doomed to fail with Levy controlling the purse strings? Well, I can't think of anyone better than to put this to first than you, Dave.
Funny that. Look, I think it's a great question from Brad, and I think, as I said at the top of this, Romero is the test case for this. Is the test case. So there's a price. They've set the price. Pay it.
Well, in fairness, Dave, they've moved the price about 3 times so far, I think.
Well, that's not helped ourselves by the fact that we've sold our best centre half. So there's a slight feeling that we might be desperate to get one. The point that, this whole thing about Enic and their investment in the squad, we've seen it now 20 odd years. They don't invest meaningfully in the squad. So Paratici, we've brought someone in. On the one hand, we've brought someone in who knows about football and will do transfer dealings without pissing people off like Levy. So we can make use of his network and contacts. But at the end of the day, Paratici goes, I've done the negotiation, Daniel. This is what the price is. Are you going to pay it or not? And Romero is the true test of this. I think just going back on his other points about the top four issue and the points that have been raised, that I agree, top four, we have to get it. That's the way of modern day football. But pragmatically, do I think we're going to get top four this season? I don't think we will. I think that the Kane goals got us to Champions League qualification. But let's not forget the solid defence that we had. Lloris, Toby Yan, Kyle Walker, Danny Rose. We had that solid defence and the midfield in front of them, of which we don't have that anymore. And this question about Champions League and qualifying for the Champions League and we attract the best players, and that goes back to Brad's comments as well. Can anyone name a top player in their peak who we bought because we were in the Champions League? I can't think of anyone.
Tongi Dembele.
But he was not at his peak. Look, you're saying, okay, we bought him.
Well, he's one of the most sought after players in Europe, Dave, at the time.
Okay, but you say that, but we bought him, and what was one of Pochettino's first comments about him? Give him a year. He'll need to settle in. Give him a year. You buy someone at the peak of their powers, and you bring him into the club. Pochettino.
That's the same. With all due respect, that's the same with any player you buy from a different league, isn't it?
Would he have said that about Paulo Dybala? Would he have said that about Bruno Fernandes? I don't think so. What peak player have we ever bought mid to late 20s at the height of their game? Because we're in the Champions League and we've attracted them. You know, Rafa van der Vaart, we got him 8 million quid from Real Madrid. He was past his peak and we got a good 60 to 70 minutes out of him. Great player. And then he faded badly. We've never bought someone at their peak.
Dave, you can't give an age limit to players and say you're someone in their mid to late 20s and then say Van der Vaart doesn't count. Because that's what he was.
No, I think he's late.
That's exactly what he was.
We'll have to Google how old he is.
Van der Vaart was born in 83, which would have made him, what, 27? 27 when he signed for Spurs, something like that? Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like it was Real Madrid's hand-me-downs, right? They didn't want him, and he needed to play somewhere. And Spurs were in the Champions League, so he thought, great,
special relationship.
But yeah, you can't give all those specifics, Dave, and then ignore the one person that hits all of them.
I just want to go back. Go on, Matt. Sorry.
I was going to say, I'd ask, like, you could ask the same question about Manchester City and Liverpool. What players have they bought who are right at their peak? Because City typically and very famously buy players who aren't at that level because they don't want to spend the 80, 90 million, £100. Like if you look at the best players in their team, Sergio Aguero, Kevin De Bruyne, Ruben Diaz last season, Rodri, Gundogan, they weren't at that level. They brought in players who they could see that potential in and just so happened to have a manager and coaching staff at the team that could realise that potential. And the same with Jurgen Klopp. They spent a lot of money on Virgil van Dijk and Alisson, but I wouldn't have said they were at the peak of their level because they were laughed at for making those signings. And if you look at the most important players of that team, Robertson was bought for 8 million from a relegated Hull City side. Trent through the academy. Mane and Salah weren't. No, Mane was doing well at Southampton. Salah was struggling. Was at Fiorentina, Roma at the time. I don't think there. I would argue there are no teams who like fully function and fully get going by buying players at the peak. At their peak and do that because it's just not financially viable. But I would say maybe an answer for that for us could be Toby Alderweireld, who was really sought after the year we got him.
Yeah, but Van Dijk was sought after. He came over to Celtic. He got a reputation.
Hold your horses with Van Dijk. Hold your horses. When he was, Matt's right there. When Liverpool signed him, people were taking the piss out of Liverpool for paying 75 million quid for a defender who, looked good, but had only done it in a Southampton team that wasn't particularly good. So he wasn't proven. It was still a punt. And most transfers are a punt, aren't they? You don't know if they're going to work out. You've got a good clue. Bruno Fernandes for Man United, he could have taken a lot. He hit the ground running really, really well, far better than I think anyone thought at the time. So, either the scout who's scouted him has done an amazing job and incredible foresight. But I think when you're buying players, there is always a big risk factor that they're not going to come through. And unfortunately for us, it seems that whenever we overpay for a player, they don't hit the ground running. Now, whether that's coincidence or poor recruitment, poor scouting, is open to debate.
So, I agree with the buying of the mixture of players, some of whom are promising and some are, you buy that mixture of players. But, to say that Man City haven't bought players at their peak, Aguero at Atletico Madrid was sought after by everybody. And he came in and he hit the ground running because him and Forlan had a great partnership going. So to say that they were buying potential, I don't think is quite right. De Bruyne, they brought him across. He'd not done well at Chelsea, and they brought him across, and he hit the ground running there. Raheem Sterling was at Liverpool, established a star name, and they prized him out of Liverpool. So I think your Cities and your Liverpools are more buying players who are at their peak. Your Chelseas as well.
I think they do more of it than us, Dave. That's my point, caller. Who have we bought at their peak who've come in straight away over the last 20 odd years, apart from Rafa van der Vaart? Well, let's say that. I mean, more relevantly, the last few years, I think would be a better question, wouldn't it?
So who?
Well, I've already given you my answer.
I think Ndombele is a good answer for that.
I don't think Ndombele is, because he's in his early 20s. The manager said give him another year.
Raheem Sterling was 18, though. Use him as an example.
But Raheem Sterling had established seasons at Liverpool, right? He was part of the Sturridge Suarez tilt at the Premier League, Stevie Gerrard slip. Yeah, Ndombele, one good season at Lyon, good performance, a couple of good performances, City away in the Champions League. Paid 50 odd million for him. We all thought he was replacing Moussa Dembele, and that's just not been the point. He's just not done it. So he's not.
I don't think Moussa Dembele is replaceable. Unfortunately, he was such a unique player. It's difficult.
He was special player.
HG, did you want to come in on that? You've been very quiet, which I know is unlike you.
I just think that the last player that we thought in the prime of his career was probably Sissoko. Right, Sissoko was 27 when we bought him. It's not about the age. This is it. It's about the quality of the player. Like you can buy a 22-year-old. I mean, Romero's 23. Like he's clearly not at the peak of his career, but he's the Serie A Defender of the Year. I'm not going to wait 4 years to sign him. You've got to buy the right players for what you want to do. The last time we spent a lot of money in that summer. Was obviously the Celso Ndombele Sessegnon summer. That was Pochettino spending the money probably for Pochettino and what he wanted to do. The stadium had just opened. We thought we had a cash cow on our hands. So you spend the money and you can afford to do that over the next 3-4 years. Pandemic hit and we haven't been able to do it since. Like a lot of it, I think, is reasonably explained as to why it hasn't happened. But yeah, like I don't really like if they're 22 and coming out of France and they don't speak a word of the language, then I think it's okay to expect them to take maybe 6 months to settle, right? I think that's fine. Having lived in a different country, I know it does take you a bit of time to do it, and money doesn't help, right? You've got to feel comfortable and confident. The Bergwijn, when he came over with his family, was a big deal, but again, he spoke English, so it was less of an issue for him to come over to England. These things all need to be taken into consideration. I don't know what the Celso's English is like, but bearing in mind he'd moved to France and probably learned French at PSG. Like he'd moved a couple of times before he came to Tottenham, so he might be more aware of being able to do that. But I just think you've got to buy the right people, and we haven't done that. We've bought terribly and we've sold terribly since the summer that we bought Alderweireld, basically.
And ultimately, that's what Paratici's here to fix, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can I make you both a lot happier?
Go.
Fabrizio Romano has just said Tottenham have been in talks today with Atalanta to improve their bid around €50 million guaranteed. So we could be very, very close to matching Atalanta's valuation there. That could be happening. I said Romero was called up for training on Monday, but hopes for deal to be completed as soon as possible. He wants Spurs. Again, no Barca bid or talks. So €50 million bid incoming for Romero.
It's happening. It's happening, Dave. You're going to be going down, son. You're going to be licking Levy's boots. That's what I want to see.
But Romero's not in his prime, so he won't count.
That's true. Terrible signing. Get him out. Let's get Harry Maguire instead.
Hang on a minute.
Absolutely.
Hang on a minute. I said that Romero is the here and now signing. I said Golini and Gil are for tomorrow. And I said this is a test of Enic. So don't start giving me we've signed him, therefore you're wrong, Patter.
No, I'm just saying you're going to have to change your tune, aren't you? Because he's passed his test.
About Levy?
Yeah.
No.
Don't put parameters in, Dave. It just means that it gives us something to bite with.
Exactly.
I really hate it when people come back to me on arguments that I've put forward and they've, out-argued me. Oh, I have to go and write another poem that you so enjoyed.
Just write a quiz next time.
Right.
I just want to leave you with this. So I saw a really interesting article on Juventus's website today. So I'll read you what I've pulled. Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Juventus say they will continue with plans for the European Super League, claiming they have successfully argued against any punishment by UEFA. A joint statement from the three clubs said a court decision on Friday in Madrid means European football's governing body have an obligation to terminate disciplinary proceedings against them. UEFA have not commented yet, but it did go to court today, and it looks like UEFA might be on the wrong side of this after all of that, which also, by the way, includes dropping the fines and punishment against the other teams that were involved in the Super League. I just wanted to get a reaction from each of you, really, because it's interesting. HG.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. It'll be a really fun 3-team league. Look, don't get me wrong. Look, I'm pretty certain that all of the clubs that signed up for it first time would sign up for it again. I've no doubt about that. As awful as it is, as much as I'm against it, I have no doubt that those teams will be more than happy to rearrange everything so that they can make more money, so that those games are at weekends and we see, Premier League games on Wednesday night. Yeah, look, I'm absolutely against the European Super League, but it's clear that, the Champions League is going to change. What is it in a couple of years? So it'll be 36 teams, of which 34 qualify and 2 get in because they used to be good. It's weird enough. I care, but I also don't, because life's too short. I want to see Spurs get better. Super League can wait until that happens. I want to see Spurs get better, and that's where my focus is.
Davo, ultimate greed always wins.
Yeah, I think, look, let's not forget the Premier League was a breakaway league from the Football League. And ultimately, they're taking it to the courts, around restraint of trade and things like that. And then UEFA might find themselves on the wrong side of it in accordance with European law. And that's what may happen. So I don't think we've heard the end of this. There's a new format of the Champions League starting this season, which just seems more teams in it and more to placate those Super League teams in the first place, and they still went off and formed it. I think the interesting thing that's going on at the moment is the Premier League case against Manchester City. And don't worry, this is all in the public eye. So it was reported in the, and I hate to say it, the Daily Mail last weekend, is that the Daily Mail have now got, from a High Court, permission to report on this. Both the Premier League and Man City were getting injunctions or forbidding the Daily Mail from reporting on this. And the High Court judge came out and said, it's in the public interest that the Daily Mail can report on this. And he made a comment, and it's notwithstanding the fact that Man City have won the league in the last 2 out of 3 seasons. So this whole financial fair play thing, that's not going away either for Man City in the Premier League. The Super League thing, it's not going to go away. Something's going to happen. And I think the ultimate thing for supporters is there still has to be a jeopardy element to it. So people can qualify for this league through their performance in the domestic league and don't qualify for it. It's when the Americans came in and wanted to make it like a franchise where no one could get relegated or promoted, and that's where people got very upset about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, any comment to add?
Look, I think it is only a matter of time before the Super League is a thing, and I think we need to brace for it because it's just going to happen. But let's take a bit of a positive out of this. Tottenham have gotten out of a £7 million bid, and whatever is a prize money over the next couple of years probably doesn't apply. But maybe that £7 million is the reason we're about to sign Christian Romero.
I love it. And I am self-indulgently going to pop up this comment here from Phil Ambrose. I'm not sure if Seb or Brenda are in the chat tonight. I don't think they are, but I'm sure they might, maybe. But thought their pod with Paul McVeigh was top class. What an insight into football and post. So I know Paul McVeigh has been giving some interviews. Is it to The Athletic? He was giving an interview with this week. Coincidentally, we recorded a pod with him. It's like it was a planned release, really.
I listened to it last night.
Did you enjoy it, Dave?
It was fantastic. I saw his goal, his one and only goal in the debut against Coventry City in 1997. Sorry, Matt. And the podcast last night was excellent, and Seb and Brendan did a great job. You should definitely check it out. Very interesting.
Yeah, and don't forget, if you're watching YouTube, we do, our main thing is normally the podcast. This is a new medium for us, and we're enjoying making these videos for you. Please do support us by giving us a like, a share, and a subscribe, and turning notifications on. But do check out the podcast as well, because it is fantastic, and we'll be bringing you unrivaled coverage throughout the football season. Matt, don't know if you'll talk about your channel for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, just in the last two minutes, I've been setting up a stream on my own channel. I'll be going live at 11:15, talk about Romero, because I think this is a massive deal for Spurs. But that's what you get. You get late night streams, dedication, every bit of transfer news you could possibly want. If you do enjoy the transfer rumor mill that flies around Spurs every single window, I'd recommend checking out my channel. I've been lucky that Tottenham have been a mess in the last couple of months, including the managerial hunt, because that got me views and subscribers. So, every cloud and all that. Of course, I'd rather we're a fully functioning club, but we have to be realistic here. But yeah, look, it's always a pleasure coming on here, and I'd highly recommend, if you haven't already, to hit the subscribe button here first.
I think I've just tried to copy and paste the link in for your show into the chat. So hopefully that works. Hopefully that works. And people can go over and enjoy Matt's show following this one. Matt, thanks very much again for coming on. Appreciate your time.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And keep up those fantastic updates. I do enjoy them. HG, thanks again for your time. You've got plenty of it.
Yeah, I do. Look, I never got to say this earlier, but I'll say it now. If you sell Dele, Bergwijn, or Mora, you sell Mora. Easy.
There you go. David.
I'm going to go away. I'm going to go away today during lockdown and work on my poetry for you all.
Nice. Get some limericks, Dave, please.
Okay.
I thought it was great. And in the meantime, let's do the Romero deal. That'll shut a lot of people up. And come on, you Spurs!
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.